Welcome to the Beyond the Bucket Show, a podcast centered around optimizing all life's buckets. We all have buckets we are balancing: coaching, entrepreneurial ventures, family, passion projects, and health. Let's all take this journey together and become bucket fillers. And here's your host, Chris McSwain.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Buckets. Today, we have somebody very, very special that is joining our program. We are excited to have him. Some call him the Godfather of AAU here in the Bay Area. Alfonso Joo, welcome to the program.
The Godfather, I love it. You know, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Tell me it's not true.
You know, it's just because I'm one of the old ones left. There's not very many of us from back when AAU was very, very different, extremely different than what it was today. You know, it is today. You know, no such thing as three levels. Girls basketball was very, very specific in certain areas. The boys basketball was growing. It was definitely very, very competitive. But it was, I mean, you just basically had to work your butts off to be seated higher. And so you took your hits, and by the same token, you showed what you were all about. So, yeah, I guess I can be considered one of the old fathers. Godfather? I don't know. Maybe because I've been doing it for so long. But, yeah,
well, I'm glad to have you, and for you to drop some knowledge to everybody and spit some game. But before we start, why don't you give a fun fact about yourself, something that even if they're close to you, they may not even know.
Well, there's a couple. My God. Okay, for one fun fact is I'm actually Cuban and Chinese. As many people that think that I'm either Hawaiian or Filipino. I am born in Cuba and father's Chinese. So I am Spanish. I speak Spanish fluently. And my dad is full Chinese. And I'm wearing a Aloha shirt. So everybody's like, you're right. Yeah, right. You're Polynesian.
So everybody has thought that. So why do they think that?
I do know that when I'm in Hawaii, it takes me about 2 or 3 hours. Next thing you know, I'm talking pidgin. So that may be one thing. I guess the color feature, Asian and color feature, I can pass for Hawaiian. You know, the long hair does help, I guess. But yeah, a lot of people think I'm poly or that I'm Filipino. Well, I live in Daly City, so duh.
And you often take trips to Hawaii too. So
yes, I do. I have a lot of very good friends on various different islands. It's all basketball related. We've grown into a big old family. It's tremendous how basketball has really, really grown on the islands. Very competitive, and some of the best families to compete with, hang out with, and just talk with. Really, 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 really fun. My plan is to always go every year to support all the teams in Hawaii.
So what's the other fun fact that you have? You said there's so many, so you might as well give us two today.
Oh, okay. I have no kids that I'm coaching that are mine. So I love the comments from parents and spectators when they come up to me and they say, "Hey, man, your kid is really good." And I say, "Which one?" And you would be surprised how many people get it to the point where I had one where I was in Hawaii, and this is just recently. So Kyle from Performance Basketball up in Oahu, we're playing in a game, and some kids come from behind the bench. They come up to me, "Hey, coach, we want to know which one is your daughter." And I said, "Oh, which one?" He said, "Yes." And I go, "Well, I'm going to let you pick them out." So they sat behind my bench, and they were looking, and they were pointing, and what have you. And they said, "That one." Now, the person that they picked was, her name is Izzy McFadden. She's extremely white with blue eyes, very light-skinned, very pale, But bring her over. I said, Izzy, come here. And they're like, yeah, see, we can see it in your eyes. And I went, okay. So it's our inside joke right now that I have these kids that are supposedly look dead on like me, that are my kids. And so I should be very, very proud. So to get the record straight, I have no kids on any of my teams that are my son or my daughter. There's absolutely no one. So that's
and it's funny because people do think that the head coach has their kid on the team all the time. I used to get the same thing. You remember Jaden, our little point guard, Jaden Patterson, and her sister played for me when I first started at Valley. And then Jaden was always around. So Jaden started playing when she was, 10, 11 years old. And I always coached her team. So everybody would say the same thing, like, Coach, your daughter's a good player, da, da, da. And I was like, thanks, but she's not my daughter. So it's just interesting how people assume stuff and they don't even have any context, but it's just funny.
So it's pretty fun. And the other fun fact is the reason why we picked BullDawgs, and the D in BullDawgs is always capitalized because that stands for defense. So back in our day, dog mentality was always considered as defense always wins games. And that's little facts from why we were, we started with the name BullDawgs, and that's why the D is capital in the BullDawgs name.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, I didn't put it in the intro, but Fonz, he is the director and founder of BullDawgs Basketball Dogs Club. And he runs so many different tournaments almost every other weekend. And they're so well organized. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I've run a couple on my own and a couple with you, and it's just crazy how much you're managing. But why don't you give everybody like a 3-minute backstory on you, how you became who you are now?
Sure. I started back in 1997, and pretty much I grew along with AAU, Amateur Athletic Union, because I kept on putting my foot in my mouth, which was one, hey, I think we should be doing tournaments better this way, or I think this should be organized this way. So little by little, I start giving my comments to tournament directors and what have you, and then ended up meeting up with the governor. And then from the governor, he pretty much introduced me back in and said, well, what would you do? So each idea that I was planted inside actually made me go higher, higher, and higher. So after establishing the club in 97, when my kids were very, very young, the last thing I thought that it was going to go, this far, this long. Even after my kids finished high school, played college, and then I still stuck with it. So it started out in the Boys and Girls Club. And that was my first team. And then I organized that one boys team and kept on going. Tournaments didn't come till later on because, again, I was a referee also starting off. So as I grew as a referee, as I grew as a tournament, I would participate in tournaments, what have you, and I would have a little bit of background as far as organizational wise, how to make things run faster, more efficiently, what have you. I applied concepts that were more in a company type, fulfillment, distribution type of mentality. I put it in that on top of what it would be if it was a military type, where, again, it was certain things that had to happen, certain steps. What would happen if something went bad here? What would you do? Flow charts, etc. So all I did was apply company type mentality to the game. And again, a little bit more military style where, you say what you do what you say. You have the steps. And that's kind of what progressed into AAU, invited me to be one of their executive board members. And then after that, a tournament organizer. So like I said before, AAU before was not, excuse me, bad allergies, wasn't in levels. It was all basically seeding. So you went to tournaments and you basically played in your grade, your age bracket. Back then it was all U status, which means your birth date, by September 1st, what have you. You had at the time, this is another thing that people don't remember. You were allowed 3 exceptions. So if you had a kid that was in 8th grade and they were 7th grade age, you could only have 3 of those on your team. A lot of background checks, a lot of birthday checks, a lot of scanning stuff. Back then, it was just, really, really a little bit more stricter, should I say. And it's come along, but when I talk about the old days, it doesn't resonate till today. The girls program was started because all of the girls that I had, I would put them on boys teams. Didn't think nothing of it at the time, but I had some very successful boys teams that had some girl participants. If it wasn't a good fit, I would feed to the adjoining clubs in the area. Mission Rec, Oscar, God rest his soul, was a great coach, mentor, program director, would send kids his way. Back in the day, there was a team over there in the South Bay, Peninsula area. North Bay was North Bay Chicks. Anyway, there wasn't many clubs, so it was easy for me to send kids that were female to those clubs. Up until the one day where I had a mom, and I tell the story to people because they say, "Why did when did you start the girls program?" I say, "Well, it hit me in the face because I had a mom that basically came up to me and told me, hey, nice to meet you." I was like, great. I was very cordial. Then she told me I was a hypocrite. And I said, whoa. It hit me hit me in the face like cold water. And I said, why would you say that? And her response was, well, I want my daughter to play for you, but she wants to play on a girls team. And I don't understand why you don't have girls teams. You only have boys teams. And that created the first program, which was called She's Got Game. From She's Got Game was my first team. It just happens my daughter was on that team. It was 13 participants. Out of those 13 girls, 11 did play at the college level, either JC or college, Division 1 through 3. 2 did not, and that was because of injuries. One back injury and one blew out her knee. And ever since I've had that one team, I've tried to match that one team, and we call them the original dogs, the original team. It's been difficult because I've never had any other team match that one team, but I've tried. Came close to it, but never at what they used to do. Just something different. It was just a different mindset back then. Again, no levels of play. It was all how you were seated. So, right. And ironically, there's not very many of us left from that era. I think there's only 2. I think me and Sue Phillips, Cagers, aka Slammers back in the day. That's another fun fact. Cagers were called the San Jose Jammers before they were called the Cagers. Little fun fact there.
And didn't Sammy's mom start the program?
Yes, that's the Poliso family. I love them too much. Just phenomenal efforts that they gave. When Sammy was at Pinewood, she was a phenomenal player. She's a phenomenal coach right now. It's just family in general. She's a basketball family. So yeah, Sammy's coaching at St. Francis High School and doing a great job.
I get to coach against her at least twice a year. Usually
but she's
more.
fun, isn't she? You have great conversation before the game and after the game.
She's fantastic. She'll hopefully be coming on here soon as well, because I want to get all the WCAL coaches at some point. So I've had a lot already. Sue's been on. She was on early, but I want to get all the WCAL coaches, men and women. And it's crazy because when I first started, I was the youngest coach in the WCAL. And now, as far as tenure goes, like I'm the second longest tenured coach behind Sue. And then Sammy's like right behind me after that too.
Yeah, so isn't that weird?
And we were both the youngest coaches in the league at the time. And then, now we have the second and third longest tenures in the league too. So yeah, it's just amazing how the game brings people together. And that's one thing that I really respect about you is you're very inclusive, and it's not just your program. You care about the other programs in the area, because if the other programs are good, your program is going to be good. And like, that's just what I've always really appreciated. And even back in the day when we first started, we had some really good boys teams. Like when all those kids, almost all those kids went to college to play basketball. And it was, that sixth, seventh, and eighth grade year that we were really, really good. And you always made sure to guide me in the right direction, to put these kids on the best platform. No, you don't want to go to that tournament. You want to go to this one, or I'm going to let you guys play up so you guys can play this. And I've always really respected that about you, because you've always kept it real. And a lot of people in this industry don't do that. They say, like you said before, you do what you're going to say and say what you're going to do. And a lot of people don't do that. So where did you kind of get that mindset from in order to be very inclusive with all programs and not worry about, some of the stuff that really don't matter?
It was, well, this is, again, one of the things that, like, as I said, I would say things in certain tournaments, and I had people that were listening to me. And they say, yeah, that makes sense. Or, hey, what would you do in this situation or this situation? Then we start getting AAU nationals involved, and you start getting people at the higher up asking you how you would tackle a certain division or a certain problem, or how do you how would you plan for certain things to happen. So it's I think the advantage that I have. And as I tell people this, I said, you got to, I've got, a lot of years behind me, but I play the part of a father. I play the part of, a fan, a father, a parent. I played the part of a coach. I've played the part as a club director, running the club. And I've coached in tournaments. I go to tournaments. I referee. So my mindset is I'm trying to do everything, all the above, so that if I went somewhere, well, how will I be happy? I'm going to be happy if this happens, this happens, this happens. And if something were to happen wrong, what would I do in order to make sure everybody's happy? And the best way everybody's happy is just being straight. It's just being straight. That's not common anymore. It's more wait until the last minute and then let's make up an excuse. And let's be honest, everybody knows what the excuses are. It's like, come on, it's like when the COVID year hit, of course, what was the excuse? Oh, it's because COVID. Everything was because of COVID. No, for the most part, I think everybody likes the line that I have, which is, listen, it's black and white. I don't like to be gray area. If it was gray area, someone's going to be upset. But at least if we know up front at the very beginning where we stand as far as black and white, you can respect anybody if that's the case. And that's, I think, one of the things, I think in general too. Respect is something that everybody always talks about, that we've kind of lost that throughout the years. And I'm talking about, the coaching etiquette. When I talk about there's a list of rules, which is coaching etiquette. They're unwritten, but you should know about them. And it's a crack up when I talk to youngster coaches and I tell them about the unwritten rules. And they're like, whoa, really? And I'm like, oh yeah. You're up by 25 and you're trying to make a layup on me, you're going to get taken out. These are the unwritten rules. But by the same token is coaching etiquette. Respect is always going to be a thing. Competition is good. Respect after a game, being able to, as like an official, if I can ref a game that is so tight and places just rocking and, there's fans and emotions and what have you, but if I can finish that game and shake both coaches' hands, then I've earned that respect. I've earned their friendship. I've earned that I worked my butt off in order to give both coaches, both teams the best that I could. So, my mindset's always been that way. Again, I use the fulfillment warehouse procedures type of mentality, and then then you go on to military. Military is, hey, if it's 7:45, you're there at 7:30. If you're on time, you're late. Yep. If you're early, you're on time. It's kind of that mentality. That's helped as far as like for the tournaments and what have you.
There's there's a good side and a bad side, and I want to touch on both of those in regards to AAU. But what were some of the good things that you really enjoyed? This is your 25th year anniversary. I'm happy to say this is about to be our 14th year anniversary, which is kind of cool. But what were the good times back then? Because I was playing AAU when you first started. Like I was 97, 98, 99, 2000. I graduated high school in 2001. So I think your son and I are about the same age. But so we were playing in tournaments back then. But what were the good parts about then? And also, what are some of the good parts that we have now? Because a lot of people want to focus on the negative part of AAU basketball, but I want to focus on some of these positives because we're going to get to the negatives for sure.
I think positive last year was the monotony of not knowing who you're going to play. So you had teams that came regularly from SoCal, from Northwest. You had some of the Vegas teams. You had a little bit more because again, there wasn't as many clubs, so you have to travel more.
And this is what you're saying back in the day.
Yeah. And then the relationship you made with people from the different areas. To this day, I still have great relationships with. I just got through seeing Rich Goldberg from American Roundball Corporation. That used to travel his teams from Central Coast and SoCal and bring them up here, and we knew when they were coming. The level of play was more. It was physical, but it was like a chess. You had different teams that had different strategies. Like the Northwest teams, oh man, you come with the the big men that can shoot outside. It was different strategies, different offensive sets that were in relationship to their teams, and they had an identity. But I think the biggest thing that I liked back then was I just got to meet so many different people. Now you have to go like to Vegas to a national convention, and then you meet up with some coaches and hey, hi, bye, maybe get a card, what have you. But back then we used to literally really get in depth and try to find out more about the program. And again, and watching these kids play, it was great watching out, all these kids from other places play. We didn't have all this social media. We didn't know. We read it in the paper. We kind of got firsthand. We were there to watch all this kind of stuff. What I liked about before, there weren't as many NBA players that had teams. But when they did, it was great to watch. I mean, you had NBA players just walking around like nothing along with their teams. And it wasn't security minded. It wasn't, it was, they were playing the game of basketball. I mean, good games surrounded all the way around. So that was great back in the day. I think the rules as far as gameplay were better back then because we had more time to play. It wasn't on the hours, an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. So there was a little bit more basketball. Spacing wise, it was great. You had stands back in the day on main courts. So it was, you knew that it was going to be a great game. We put them on those specific courts. Why? Because we knew there was going to be a lot of people. So that grand stage type was phenomenal. Certain tournaments back in the day that you knew you had to go to. Like, I'll give you a fun fact that I don't think anybody realizes. The Reno Memorial Tournament originally was only girls. Reno Memorial Day weekend originally was only girls.
Didn't know that.
Convention center. They're the only ones it was a girls pre-nationals. You couldn't come in with if I came in with this shirt, they wouldn't let me coach because I had to have a collared shirt. If I came in sandals, couldn't coach. You have to have closed, no open toe footwear. You went into rooms with your team, and there was a person who basically checked your team in. and they took your birth certificates, they took your pictures, and they went through your team. You had a designated time in order to check your team in. A lot more professional, a lot more involved. And then Mike Connors was the one that was running it for the boys from the Northwest, and he used Reno, but they were all in schools, all single, double gyms, school gyms. That was different back in the day too. So I can go on and on and on. I can go from year to year to decade on all the points, but it was. I like that from before. I really, really, really do like that from before.
And fast forward now, what are some of the positives or the good things that are going on with AAU now?
The good thing is there's more participation. There's just more participation. As we look at it, people say, AAU's this. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to give you my example. I live in Daly City. In Daly City, our public schools used to have a league, and the schools would play each other. And they used to have the PE teachers that were the coaches, and costs go down and what have you, and they make these changes. So all of a sudden now they say, you know what, we're going to let Park and Recs do it. So you take that factor out, you take PE teachers out from the school, it affects who wants to play. Now you're a school kid and you're not able to play in front of your schoolmates after school, right? So all of a sudden now Park and Recs takes it and they say, okay, well, you're from school A, you're from school B, and you're from school C. We're going to put you on a team. You take away what school's about. On top of learning, it's the camaraderie. It's the things that you do after school. It's the events that you make. So taking sports, and you're taking sports out as individual for a school, and now you're taking it and letting somebody else run it for you. It takes away from it. So now you have a void. Who's going to fill that void? Unfortunately, or should I say, fortunately, AAU has kicked in, but there's a lot of school districts, a lot of school rec programs that don't exist anymore. So in fact, what's happening is AAU is filling that void.
So I agree with you. There's a lot more kids that are able to play, which I think is great. However, do you think that it's oversaturated with so many teams? I mean, even 13, 14 years ago when we started, there wasn't that many teams in the area. Now it seems like there's a team around like a team. Like it's crazy. And sometimes it's just like one team. It's not like a whole program. When I think of a AAU program, it's teams at each grade level. What do you think about just the saturation and number of pure teams that are out there right now, especially in our area?
I mean, there's good points, there's bad points. If I were, we've just come over a 2.5 year shutdown. We're seeing it in the high schools right now. We're seeing that the JV level players that some are behind, and it's not their fault. So the inside of me says yes, oversaturated. It's just too many, what have you, or should I say, there's too many kids playing on multiple teams. That's probably one of my pet peeves, of that, which means more teams. You take away from one kid playing on 3 freaking teams, it goes down.
And pause that. So why do you think kids are playing for multiple teams?
Because they don't want to go to practice and they just want to go to games. The mindset is games. My mindset, what has always never changed, and my son Stevie is now running the boys program. Our mentality is the same. You need to be able to walk before you run. So we agree with having training programs in order to prepare for. That way you're ready to play. But again, we have 3 different levels in AAU now, level 1, 2, and 3. So there is, if you're going to a tournament that's going to be straight with you as far as what levels of play you're going to play in, then you're fine. If you're grouped into one, then that's where the disappointments are happening. But if I switch gears and I say for girls basketball, I'm gonna say I want them to play as much as possible now, because we're hurting. Girls basketball took a huge hit.
Right.
And so in my case right now, I would say on the boys' side, yeah, it's got to be a little bit more controlled. But on the girls' side, hey, anything goes now. It's just to get them to participate. Anything goes because of that hard hit. I mean, I have 3rd and 4th grade girls right now that we're looking to play other kids, and there's not many 3rd and 4th grade girls around there. So what are we doing? We're just preparing. We're training. And when we start getting more games available to us to play, at least we'll be available to play. But if COVID wouldn't have happened, probably a different mindset. But because COVID happened, and the whole idea of getting them back into the gym, but again, the mindset is, why practice when I can just play? Or, hey, I can pick up something here, I can pick up something there. I mean, back in our day, you had to have a release from your club in order to be eligible to play. Unless you got that release, you were out 30 days, and you were called on it. If someone came up to me, and let's just say I was in Vegas, and somebody came up to me and say, "Hey, that player plays for Club A, and I know that he's not on that team," and I would have to go and produce an affidavit that basically said, "Oh yeah, this club releases him from their club because they're not participating this summer, and I do have a new AAU card with his name attached to this club, so he is legal."
Right.
I've had that happen, and I've had the reverse happen, where I've had to declare a kid ineligible and forfeit their games because he was not attached to that club.
Right. So there was a bigger governing body, it seemed like, but now it seems like anything goes. Kids are playing on multiple teams, but then some of these teams, which might be a 15U, are playing 14U. To me, it's just like, what for? What are we really doing it for? To get this little medal or get this little trophy? And to your earlier point about the girls suffering, the boys, in my opinion, have it a lot better because the 3 main sports, well, especially when you get to high school, the 3 main sports don't really overlap a ton. Football overlaps a little bit early on with preseason basketball, and then or postseason basketball kind of overlaps a little with baseball. But those are the 3 sports that boys are playing. Girls, now there's year-round basketball, there's year-round soccer, there's year-round volleyball, year-round. You can only play tackle football. Now they have 7-on-7. This is different. But as far as real football is concerned, it is only going to be played from August till November.
Correct.
Volleyball is year round. Even like if you had a girl at your high school that wants to play basketball, well, their club tryouts are during the volleyball season. They make the team, and then once they make the team, they can't play basketball because they're practicing 2 times, maybe even 3 or 4, depending on whatever the club. You can't play. And then soccer directly interferes with basketball too. So it's just like, it's just tough. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, like even for youth sports, it's very hard for a kid to decide, oh, I want to play baseball right now or softball. I want to play basketball too, but there's no governing body that says, okay, this is the time in which you guys can play. So kids can play multiple sports, because I'm a big proponent. I think I played 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball every year. That's how it worked. I go from one to the other, even in high school. And then until my, after my sophomore year, when I just played football and basketball just because I couldn't do baseball anymore. But at least I did it for 2 years for all 3 sports.
Yeah, it was different back then. I mean, Stevie was playing. I was part of AYSO soccer. That was August, and then come into winter, we were playing basketball, and then come spring, he's pitching. And some games after he was playing, baseball, we'd go play basketball. But it was balanced. That's what it was. It was balanced. The thing about it though is, I've seen baseball grow to year round. I've seen, like you said, you have that 7-on-7 football now. It's turned into let's get our kids very well rounded. But a lot of cases, I'm talking to parents and they say they're putting them into this, that, and that, and I go, wow, they really like all that? She goes, no, we got to learn an instrument, got to be good at math, and got to be. And I'm like, wow, I mean, then you really don't have too much time on your hands because they're doing all these different things. But is that because they like it or because you think they need it? you know. It's changed now. It's changed. I mean, I think I speak for most that if I was in school and I saw the band class and I was like, wow, I want to learn how to play that piano. I go home, hey, I want to learn piano. Oh, okay, let me find you some lessons. I wasn't forced into it just because I had an interest, so to speak. I think a lot of kids are doing things right now because they think they're supposed to, or they should be able to do it. I mean, I know some kids right now, and and most coaches will agree with me. I mean, I can tell if someone's a soccer player by the time they, come into the gym and they're doing a layup, and I see them kick into a layup, and my first reaction is, "Hey, does your kid play soccer?" Yeah. Okay. Well, how'd you know? I'm like, well, his mechanics, his muscle memory, I can see it. Volleyball players in basketball, we know what's going on. You're not going to find that volleyball player is not going to box out because she's trying to avoid everything, especially the net, trying to do it in one specific area. But I mean, there's goods and bads. I mean, you never know what you're going to be good at. I had a kid who was 6'2", 6'3", great, phenomenal player, played private in the city. We used to call him Shaggy, and he was a fencer. I didn't know this. And when the mom told me that he was a fencer and he was really good at it, and I was like, you know what? Stop playing basketball. I'm gonna tell you right now, if he's that good and he likes it, I suggest you stop playing basketball. She took my suggestion. She's been, we were thrilled. I mean, she was thrilled. The kid was like, yeah, basketball's really not where my hunger is. I really like fencing. He ended up going to an Ivy school and got school paid for him. So I think it was a great choice. So,
and what year did he stop?
Oh, right before high school.
Okay, so I agree with that.
In high school, and I said freshman year you can play. After that, don't worry about it.
Okay,
so I'm going to say you should keep on.
I believe in that too. I think after your freshman year, if you have an opportunity to play whatever it may be, that's when you might need to think of playing or going into a single sport. Right. where you're very specialized or specializing in that particular skill. Prior to that, I don't think you really need to, because almost all the best athletes, I mean, you just look at like football players, for instance, they all the best football players, they played basketball. Like Ohio State back in the not too far long ago, but they had this stat about they had 2 and 3 sport athletes throughout their entire roster on their national championship team. It's because, and as you see a lot of kids get burnt out too now. There's a lot of kids that get burnt out on this hoop stuff because they start playing basketball at, let's just say 8 years old, even 10, 10U, fourth grade. They are literally playing basketball every single weekend throughout the fall, the winter, the spring, or even if you skip every other weekend. Like, it's just too much. It's way too much basketball. And then you see the kids get injured and stuff like that. But so I think parents can do a better job of just putting them in a right situation. If they like the environment that they're in, if they like the Dogs Club, stay. If it's working, stay. Figure it out. And sometimes you do have to leave. Like, hey, you've had kids leave your program. We've had kids leave our program. It is what it is. And we, as directors, we can't hold it against them if they feel like they may have found something better, and maybe it is. Who knows?
It's a fit. It's always going to be, it's a right fit. And I think the part of when someone feels slighted, because I'd be lying if I didn't say, hey, I'd help out certain kids and what have you. And, I've talked to other people who are directors and say, hey, Fonz, what would you do in this case? And I say, listen, understand this. Kids are going to be kids, and they're going to come and go, because that's kind of what they're doing. You just have to kind of filter yourself to the point where you understand which one's the actual user or the abuser. Okay. Do they want to use you or do they want to play for you? If they're being real, then, you do whatever's possible for us. As I've told many before, I've had a lot of kids go through the program. I've had some great, phenomenal kids that I have great relationships with. I go watch their games. I every year, again, that's one of the reasons why people think that I have kids, because they see me at so many games. And my whole thing is I want to support every single one of my players as much as possible, including college. I'll hop on a plane. I'm on my way. I'm going to watch somebody play. That's just what I've done. That's what a lot of my coaches have done. But I get it when someone leaves the program, it's got to be because it's a better fit somewhere, or it just makes sense. I've got a lot of players who I try to put on other teams. Why? Because they're traveling far in order to come to practice. If it takes you anywhere near an hour and a half to 2 hours to come to me, I don't get it. But, I feel very, very, very special when someone does that and they say, no, we want to play for you. So that makes sense. And in some cases, you've got homework as an issue. You got driving on the road. You have, hey, it's a better situation. I have a sibling and we're going to be at this club. All that works. Again, we fall back on communication. If communication is there, then you're fine. It's the abusers that are always going to get everybody pissed off, which is, and we all know, we've had them before, and you should say, hey, at least I did something for the kid. Parents sometimes don't get it. They just want the best deal. There's just going to be, but as I've told other coaches, other directors, is if you have good coaching etiquette, have your conversations, but make sure you're in good with every single director and every single club coach. Why? Because those are the ones you want to have those great relationships with. Unfortunately, kids come and go. So you want to have that relationship always, because in the long run, it's going to be good. I mean, I'll mention, like I said before, when there wasn't as many girls, teams, clubs, what have you, it wasn't unusual to get a call from somebody and say, hey, I got one of your players here, and you say, oh, what's up? Because well, I want to know, was there a problem? We'd say no. It's a better fit. Lives by you. We've got a different situation practice wise, what have you, and she seems better. If she makes your team, you've got all the thumbs up from us. And calls like that were usual. I mean, you had conversations with people. Somebody knew that person played for him or her or what have you. So you want to know, hey, I got this kid that usually played for Palo Alto, and they're here. What's up? Hey, on the phone. What's up? What happened? Oh no problem. She's just moved. Doesn't live in my area anymore. Lives by you guys now. Okay.
Well, it comes down to two things that you mentioned on both already, which is the number one, respect, and then number two, the communication. I have a player that plays for you right now, and you've been
phenomenal player too.
You've been communicating with me constantly about recruiting process, this, that, and the third. There are some club directors in the area that I'll reach out to and say, hey, just checking in on so-and-so, wanted to see where recruitment is. And they don't get back. Like that to me is unacceptable, because it's just a simple text or a call back and say, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But I will say that a lot of people do it really well. Bay City, the Cagers, you guys, Cal Stars, just the level of communication and professionalism is there. I think it's some of the programs that may have just started or don't have like the cachet as like all of our programs. Those are the ones that kind of put that bad name on just the whole population. The few are the ones that kind of take away from the ones that are doing it well. So there are a lot of great programs that are doing it really, really well.
You're right. And again, it's a lot of the times. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of new coaches, new clubs, what have you, because they'll send an email to AAU or what have you, and I'll end up getting the email saying this certain coach doesn't know how to ask for a permit for a gym, or they don't know the rules on this or that and what have you. Thank you. And they'll go back, and I'll have to run things through them, and they'll say, "Hey, wait a minute, aren't you the club guy with the BullDawgs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am, but right now you called AAU, so what I'm doing is I'm putting on that hat, which is I'm helping you out so you can understand what the rules are or how to do things, or any type of help information wise." But I think what's happening is a lot of the clubs that are starting out, because I've had people that have broken the rules, they didn't even know it. Like, they didn't know it. And so it's not really their fault, because they just couldn't navigate through the informational process to understand. I've had conversations with people. I say, "Hey, if you're doing uniforms, uniforms usually on one hand. If you can do it on one hand, that's usually the uniforms you use. So there's special numbers. Number 8, of course, for Kobe. You let it slide." But I'm seeing people with 87, 86, 58. And it's like you're kind of all over the place on numbers. It's just an FYI, little things like that. Understanding the 11U, 12U, 13U. What does all that mean? I've had people that have no clue what that meant, and once I explained it to them, they were like, "Oh, okay, now I get it." And I was like, "Okay." So there's a lot of topics that are happening right now. I'm not even gonna, but there's new things all of a sudden popping up, and even I have to go back and go, "Okay, what would I do?" It's let's just leave it at we're California, and we got some. So I'll leave it at that.
We'll leave that where it's at. I already know the direction you're talking about. But anyway, so tell me about, okay, for somebody that doesn't really know what a tournament, they could even be a club director or in the club space. But what goes into putting on a quality tournament, regardless of how many teams it is? You can have just one gym, right? And you can put on a quality tournament. But what goes into all of that for people that don't know what it's like to put on a AAU basketball tournament?
Well, for one, timing is everything right now, because everybody's got places to go. Everything's got an appointment. Everybody's got to be here, that. What used to be back in the days, you got one schedule, and that was one schedule is it. Those days are gone. The whole idea of there's one coach only for one team, it just doesn't make any sense right now for club directors, club coaches, because you don't just need one to cover one team. You're going to have probably anywhere from 2 to 3 teams, just because if someone's going to come out, and I'm going to go backwards, someone's going to come out to practice. Most coaches aren't going to come and be available for just an hour or an hour and a half a week. It's just, as we pay coaches, it's just not worth their time. We don't have as many volunteers as we did back in the day. That's why Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs and et cetera, they're hurt, because people don't have the time to volunteer. So you're going to have paid staff. So in that realm, that's affected tournaments, because you have to arrange it so that it makes it, you're comfortable. The days of only playing on one day 2 games and the other day 1 game are over. It's either you play 2 on Saturday or 2 on Sunday, and you may play one or the other. So organizational communication with what exactly each club, each team is built with, as far as what their needs are. You got to be a little bit more open. So in my case, I've been called the master of scheduling, just because I ask so many questions and I put it in front of me. There's applications that are now on, because these guys sat in our garage and watched me and my son do a schedule. They made algorithms. I'll take credit for that. A lot of these tournament apps right now, they owe me a lot, because I gave it to them, the information, for free. So a lot of the tournaments that are going to be successful are going to be built on, one, making sure you've got enough gym space. That's one. 2, and this is again one of my pet peeves. It's just me. I don't like half split courts. It's just me personally. Why? One, that cramped feel. Two, injury wise, you just got too many people that are too close to certain areas. So my thing is enough gym space. If I have enough gym space, then that's where I'm going to cap it at. The other thing is, realistically, when do you want to end? When do you want to start? I mean, I don't like going into the night. Why? Because when I was playing, or when I was coaching, and when my kids were playing, and my parents and players, we wanted to do something that weekend with the team. We wanted to be able to go at a decent hour, leave at a decent hour. And if we I mean, because let's be honest, back in the day, we used to have these games, and we used to be together after the games, the teams, and hang out and have lunch or have dinner or something like that. So it was an event you went to, but you also made it a team bonding experience. So I take all that into its points, what have you. One example, if I have a team coming from SoCal, from far away, I'm going to make it so that's easy for them to come. That's one. Two, I'm going to make sure about the traffic. Three, I'm going to put them in a gym where they don't have to travel back and forth. Why? Because I want them to enjoy the tournament. When we talk about tournaments, it's an event. An event, you want to be able to host an event. The idea of being a host, when you're hosting someone for dinner, when you're hosting someone over for someone to stay over your house, you're basically trying to give them the best bed, the best food, the best spread, the best everything in order to host them. So in my mind, I've always had that in my head, that when I'm running a tournament, I am a tournament host. What am I going to do to make the person who's coming to me enjoy it, as if I did a 6th, 7th course dinner, or I laid out the queen bed for them, in spare room, and made sure that the sheets were clean, make sure that there was, water available. I gave them the fluffiest pillows, which goes into, again, preparation. So my mindset has always been, again, if I'm a coach, if I am a father, if I'm a grandfather, if I am a director, if I'm a referee, what's going to be my best in order to be there and do the best I can. So with that,
and that right there is the reason why you're the best at it around. Of running an organized event, because it's not about you. You care about the experience for everybody else. And if nobody heard anything else about what you said, that is it. That is really it. And that's why you can run a tournament every other weekend and people still show up. That's why your events are sold out every single week. You don't even have to hit some of our co-directors and be like, hey, you got your teams ready to make sure that we get in. So yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. And you've just kept the cost relatively low. You've increased it a little bit, but people don't realize how much the gyms are now. They're so much more expensive after COVID. And it's just crazy how much more these facilities cost to run an actual event like you're talking about.
Yeah, my pet peeves right now is seeing the 15 at the door and 20, which if it gets to that point, I don't know what I would do, because I try to work with all, and that's the other thing too. When we talk about being a tournament director, I have great relationships with all the schools that we use, because it's kind of a fundraiser for them too. Unfortunately, facilities after COVID have put in their ads, so it's taken away from, but it's also it's increased the price. It's taken away from the school's athletic fund, and it's increased the price for rental. But more so, a lot of the schools that I work with, they have in turn worked back with me, because again, I have great relationships. I keep them involved. I keep them up to date and involved if any of their players are playing with us. And that's the other thing that I think a lot of directors, when they have kids from other schools, what have you, it's just, I love it. That's like I said, I loved when I sent you that text about your player, because it's you know, you did a great job with her, and by the same token, you had great words to say about the club. And in turn, I says, well, I want to make sure that, you know, I support you because I want you to be successful. She represents our club, but she also represents Valley Christian. I want her to be successful. So in that success, it's really, it's you know, it's really fun when you get a group together and you're like, hey, we did this. You know, we did this. I had a kid right now who's just signed, and you know, my message when I e-blasted out is a congratulations, and I'm going to include, as I always have, the coaches that have helped. You know, it's not just me. Her high school coach helped a lot, and other people. I want to make sure that they're recognized for it, because it isn't a soul. It really isn't just like one group. It's not realistic. I mean, it's not realistic. So that part of it is what I mean, as far as, again, that whole thing with running tournaments. You put yourself in every single category, and you say, well, you know, I want to make sure I do this right. The little things like, hey, scorekeeper, stay off your phone. Why? Because I'm giving you a job, and if you want a job after this and you're going to put me as a reference, I want to put down that you're attentive, that you're focused, that you're, you know, it's a job. Later on in life, you're going to use us as a reference. I want you to get that job. So I'm training you right now. Get on it. So it's the whole life lessons. I guess that's the OG part of me.
Yeah. So I mean, you've been at this for a long time. What's next? What do you want to continue to do, or what do you eventually want to do?
Man. I want grandkids. The next thing is to see how I can keep this going, where I want younger kids, you know, younger, hungry type of same mentality. I want to keep this going. I have to be realistic. You know, it's just turned 60 this past year. I can't keep on, you know, burning it at both ends. You know, I've spoken a couple of times and say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about, and you know, each time I've said that, I see what we affect as far as the club wise. You know, the schools, the coaches from the schools, the colleges, what have you, that I work with, same thing. They're like, you know, hey, we've got a great relationship. You know, we want to keep this going. But as I tell them, it gets tougher every year. I mean, it really does. You know, COVID year was extremely tough. You know, as you mentioned, it's gotten more and more expensive. It's not like, you know, I think everybody should know, it's just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you have people banging on your door ready to give you money.
Right.
That's not reality. So I think the next thing for me is to see how I can build my own gym, and kind of go into the sunset that way, so I can just be that guy sweeping the floor.
Well, you might not be able to do it in the Bay Area with.
Hey, I can always dream, right?
You sure can. I mean, it's tried as well, especially in South Bay, San Jose area. I mean, there's not been a gym that's been able to last, like a multi-court facility up in the East Bay. I mean, you know that it has changed over multiple times to different owners and things like that. Yeah. And there's not really has there been any in the Peninsula multi-court use? There was one in Burlingame for a minute, right?
No, we took those courts.
Yeah. So
yeah. So unfortunately, I've been a part of you know, again, with AAU. So whenever something like that happens, we go in there and we offer to buy the courts, the baskets, the frames, what have you. So unfortunately, there's, you know, Burlingame Sports Center was one of them.
There you go, yeah. Because they had the little NBA courts. They had like the Warrior court, and then
they had the reusable court in the back, and then the floating floor, and then they had the two baskets. The other floors were in ground. You know, the Hayward one, of course, everybody knows Dream Courts. Those courts are now, you know, with AAU also, right. The baskets. You know, the ones I can mention a lot of gyms that
that's the one negative thing about our area is there's no 8-court facility where you can just play. In LA, there's so many in Anaheim and Garden Grove where it's just easy. And they used to have, before COVID, they had the American Sports Centers where they had 25 courts. Well, it just made sense. It made a whole lot of sense when you can just bring, where you're going. You pick a hotel that's close to that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things that we could be negative about. But the best thing about this is we're able to do something that we love. We're able to impact and serve others because of the game of basketball. And I think every single day I'm excited for that part. So people that are listening, we ain't complaining. We've loved every aspect of this. And I can speak for both of us. I'm sure this has been amazing to do basketball. I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, and I run a club basketball program. What a better life can you have,
I mean, there's goods, there's bads, and everything. But I think the one thing that we can both agree on, there's nothing like seeing that one kid's face, just light up, and they're playing, and they're just playing, and it's fun, and you get those moments where someone hits their first shot, or they run down and throw a freaking backboard pass that goes mania, and it's so many moments that can be captured, so many moments in one of my sayings that I think you've seen on my what I tell people is I want to be immortal, and being immortal means making memories. And I quote Bruce Lee's How to Be Immortal. And I tell people, I say, when it's time for me, I'm going to stay immortal because I have so many memories. I've got memories on top of memories. I can just sit there and daydream all day long of so many different events, so many different moments, so many different times where I just go, wow. And you go back and I'm going to live forever.
For sure. Well, is there anything that you got going on that you'd like to plug? I mean, you run a tournament every other weekend, so you can go to dogsclub.com for that. But go ahead and plug anything you got right now.
Hey, let's enjoy. Winter is coming. We're going to. I'm really going to be looking forward this year. We've got some new rules in place. Parents and players, make sure you remember there's 5 fouls for every quarter now. There's no more 1-and-1. Be kind to the refs. Hey, there's not very. It's a shortage, so support them as much as possible. I am going back to the courts. They asked me to come back, so I'm gonna do my part and kind of be. Yeah. They asked for a little bit more veteran stuff, so
maybe you get that SI Valley Christian game.
Hey, I'm gonna make sure I do a lot of stretching. So.
Hey,
looking forward to the season.
Before I let you go, if there's somebody that should be on the show, this is the last question, because my producer is telling me I have to go pick up my son. But if there should be somebody on the show, who should it be? But you have to make the connection that we can get them on.
God, who you should talk to, because she's been with it for longer than I. It's Sharice Green with AAU. Up in Reno. She's got stories, man. Incredible and very, love her. She comes down from Reno, she's come down here and help me. So again, she is
amazing. I don't know her personally, but I know we've shared emails, and she's on top. So please connect us. But yeah, everybody, that was the czar of the Bay Area basketball, Alfonso Joo. Thank you so much.
You got it, correct.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.